Oh, it's only 12:30. It's still pretty early. Yeah. Uh, bon courage to all of us. Yeah. I just want to add one note to what Bintu said, and that's from our colleagues at UNHCR, who today launched an appeal seeking $40.4 million to deliver protection and assistance to 275,000 internally displaced people in South Kivu, North Kivu, Maniema, and Tanganyika provinces of the DRC, as well as to support the a potential influx of 258,000 refugees and asylum seekers and returnees in neighboring countries, including Burundi, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Zambia. UNHCR says there's an urgent need for shelter, food, latrines, as well as relocation for the new arrivals to sites to address overcrowding. UNHCR and its partners are stepping up assistance and distributing warm meals and water to new arrivals. They need relief, all sorts of relief supplies. And just to say that in South Kivu, humanitarian partners have also raised concerns that ongoing clashes in Uvira are hindering access, including movements of ambulances, while hospitals report daily casualties among civilians. And in the Kalehe territory, fighting has forced more than 50,000 people to flee over the past week, many to Burundi. Since February, more than 40,000 Congolese nationals, the majority of whom are women and children, have arrived in Burundi seeking protection there. A couple of travel notes. As I mentioned to you yesterday, the Secretary General will be in Geneva on Monday to address the Human Rights Council, as well as the Committee on Disarmament. Our Deputy Secretary General is in South Africa, where today she took part in the second and final day of the G20 foreign ministers meetings. In her remarks, Amina Mohammed reaffirmed our support for the G20 platform. With just 5 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, she warned that we're off track and that decades of development gains are at risk, particularly for the most vulnerable. She underscored that in today's deeply interconnected world, no nation can stand alone, and that global challenges demand global action. In the afternoon, she had a number of bilateral discussions with several foreign ministers, emphasizing the urgency of reinforced multilateralism and strong partnership to accelerate the implementation of the Pact of the Future and the SDGs. She also sought their support for securing an ambitious outcome at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, which will take place in Sevilla, in Spain, this July. Tomorrow, she travels to Nairobi in Kenya for a series of engagement on food systems ahead of the second UN Food Systems Summit Stocktake, which will take place in Addis also in July. And yesterday, I had mentioned to you that she had met with the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa. I stand corrected. That meeting did not take place. Our Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, is continuing his own travels in Eastern Africa. Today he's in South Sudan, where he met with the country's first Vice President, Riek Machar. They discussed the progressing peace implementation and other topics. He also met with key members of the technical bodies tasked with constitution making and electoral preparations to get a sense of the challenges they face in making significant advances in their respective areas. Additionally, he held discussions with diplomatic community, including representative of the African Union, also the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, known as IGAD. As mentioned, Mr. Lacroix will travel up to Abyei tomorrow to visit the peacekeeping mission there. Turning to Gaza, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that aid operations continue to reach Palestinians from north to south with critical assistance, including cash. Since the ceasefire, some 138,000 people across Gaza have benefited from cash assistance, including people with disabilities, as well as pregnant and breastfeeding women. UNICEF also tells us that since the ceasefire took effect, market conditions have improved in Gaza. Goods are reportedly less expensive, and there are more commodities available. For the first time since July, children under the age of 5 and pregnant and breastfeeding women have a more diverse diet, consuming more fruit, vegetables, eggs, and dairy products. Meanwhile, we and our partners are continuing to provide shelter support for people in Gaza, with UNRWA distributing tents, tarpaulins, blankets, mattresses, clothes, kitchen items to thousands of families hosted in 120 shelters throughout the Gaza Strip. And turning to the West Bank, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is continuing to monitor the situation and remains concerned by the Israeli forces' ongoing operations in the northern part of the West Bank. That has been the longest security military operation since the early 2000s. OCHA warns that settler violence also continues. Between the 11th and the 17th of February, OCHA documented 34 incidents, an average of almost 5 per day, involving settlers and resulting in casualties or property damage. In one such incident, Israeli settlers severed agricultural water pipes in Tulkarem Governorate, affecting the livelihoods of dozens of Palestinian farmers. During the same period, nearly 40 Palestinians were displaced near Almania village in Bethlehem, following recurrent attack from Israeli settlers over the past year. OCHA has documented the displacement of almost 2,300 Palestinians, including 1,100 children, across the West Bank since the start of 2023 due to heightened settler violence and access restrictions by Israeli authorities. Also, I can tell you that the Secretary General is deeply concerned by reports that the remains of Shiri Bibas, the Israeli hostage, which were due to be returned yesterday alongside her children's remains, are still missing. He stresses the imperative to respect the dignity of the deceased and to ensure their remains are returned to their families in accordance with international humanitarian law and human rights law. Every release must be carried out with the utmost dignity in line with humanitarian principles. The Secretary General continues to reiterate his appeal to the parties to abide by all their commitments and continue to fully implement the ceasefire and hostage release deal. Moving north to Lebanon, our peacekeeping mission there continues to observe sporadic military activity by the Israeli Defense Forces. The mission is also has also heard gunshots. It's an area of operations. Meanwhile, the Lebanese armed forces are now deployed in approximately 100 positions south of the Litani River, and our UNIFIL Blue Helmets continue to accompany and support the Lebanese armed forces in their deployment. In the past 2 days, UN peacekeepers discovered several unexploded ordnances as well as caches of unauthorized weapons in some areas in the south. These discoveries were immediately reported to the Lebanese armed forces so that they can dispose of them. On the political level, today, the Lebanese Foreign Affairs Committee delegation met with the head of mission and force commander of UNIFIL, General Haroldo Lazzaro. That meeting took place in Nukora, the headquarters of UNIFIL. They discussed the overall situation and voiced members of the delegation voiced their solidarity after the recent attacks on peacekeepers in Beirut. Turning to Libya, the advisory committee there established by the UN mission concluded yesterday its second 3-day meeting in Tripoli. Facilitated by the mission's electoral and constitutional experts, the committee held discussions on the current electoral framework, focusing on the contentious aspects that have impeded the holdings of national elections in Libya. Members underscored the importance of a holistic approach to resolving these challenges. The advisory committee agreed to reconvene in the coming days to continue its work. And from Ukraine, our colleague Matthias Schmale, resident and humanitarian coordinator, is saying that this year $2.6 billion are needed to sustain assistance for 6 million Ukrainians. He urged the international community to continue being generous and not to forget Ukraine, reminding the world that more than 10 million Ukrainian people remain uprooted, with some 3.7 million of them displaced within their own country. His remarks were made as we approach the 3rd-year mark of the Russian Federation's full-scale war on Ukraine, which Mr. Schmal called a somber milestone. He also flagged several priorities for this coming year, including delivering aid where it is needed most and ensuring more durable solutions for internally displaced people. Today is what day? Besides Friday, Exactly. And what is your mother language? Is your mother language English? Excellent. Well, we celebrate that. UNESCO reaffirms its commitment to preserving the approximately 7,000 languages spoken around the world. At least 40% of languages spoken today are in danger due to globalization and societal change. That's why UNESCO is working with countries to prioritize multilingual teaching based on the language best understood and spoken as a basis for quality education. Ready for a little quiz? Ooh. Two more nations have paid up, one where pearl diving was a vital part of the economy for thousands of years. And while pearl diving isn't commonly associated with the second country, pearl oysters have been spotted in the Gulf of Poets. What is the first country? Okay, no, you're not, it's on the Arabian Peninsula. It's the United Arab Emirates, okay? And the second country, where's the Gulf of Poets? It could be, but it's not. It's on the Apennine Peninsula. What country is that? Italia. We say shukran to our friends in Abu Dhabi and a big grazie to our friends in Rome for giving us money. Deji.
So I'm going to ask a question in my mother language.
Yeah, but I'll answer in mine then.
All right, okay. To be serious, okay. It's been reported that the Trump administration has halted a participation of U.S. scientists in a key UN climate change assessment, and U.S. probably will not attend a major IPCC plenary meeting next week to plan the 7th Global Climate Assessment. Do you read this news, and what is the reaction from the Secretary General?
I've seen the news. I don't have confirmation from the IPCC, but it is clear that climate change is one of these challenges that the Deputy Secretary General alluded to in her remarks in South Africa, which global challenges demand global solutions.
And second question. Yesterday, it's been reported, actually it's not been reported, but it's actually a fact, that the senator of Utah, Mike Lee, introduced a bill to the Senate called Defunct Act of 2025, repeal the United Nations Participation Act and repeal of United Nations Headquarter Agreement Act, and also assess and stop funding of United Nations and its agencies.
You don't need to read the whole bill.
No, it's not the whole thing. But does the Secretary General have any position on this?
Deji, as you know, we tend not to comment on bills that are being discussed in various legislatures.
But do you think this time it's quite real?
I think I will leave that analysis to analysts. Margaret, then Benny.
Just a simple one, Steph. Where will the SG be to speak on the Ukraine war anniversary? Is he going to be?
We will release a statement probably on Sunday, which we'll try to share you under embargo. He will probably make refer to it in his remarks on Monday in Geneva. There will be a Security Council meeting, I think, at some point here. Rosemary DiCarlo will speak for the UN.
And that statement he's putting out, is it? Sometimes they're video statements. So is it
I
video
don't think this will be video. Benny,
Steph.
Avni.
Dujarric. Two questions. First of all, I saw yesterday the condemnation of the Secretary General for the ugly display in Gaza of handing over bodies. Does he have the same condemnation to the ICRC, which was on the stage in that display?
Look, I can't comment on the ICRC works independently from us. What I
so
do
does Hamas.
Benny, what I do know is that the ICRC plays a critical role. They have in the past voiced their concern about how the hostage handovers were done, and we have full faith in their capacity to do their work following international law, of number of which are the repositories, and we have full faith in them and continue to do so.
Noted. Secondly, you spoke about the operation in the West Bank. Yesterday there was a bombing of an Israeli bus. Luckily, the passengers were able to leave because somebody saw something and said something. The question is there any justification? We know that the people who put the bomb in that bus came from the northern West Bank. Is there any justification for fighting terrorism?
There is always, I mean, in the fight against terrorism, what we ask for, and we recognize that there's often a need all around the world to fight terrorism, is that it be done in accordance with international law. And I think the concern that we voiced, you mentioned the West Bank. In the West Bank is the use of warlike weapons in these security operations.
But you haven't condemned that bus bombing.
I mean,
yesterday.
of course, we're against bus bombings, but I think everything is still very much under investigation, if not a gag order, from what I read. Okay. I'd like to put myself under a gag order sometimes. Go ahead, Ibtissam, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. The special rapporteur for the UN for the Palestinian territory, Ms. Francesca Albanese, she was in Berlin, Germany, to give a lecture about in her capacity as a special rapporteur, and in that meeting, it was reported that the riot police in Germany showed up, and they were there against the will even of the organizer. The meeting took place at the Junge Welt newspaper, and it was organized by 3 local organizations, Jüdische Stimme, as a Jewish Voice, I for Palestine, and Gaza Committee Berlin. And that came after also cancellation of other lectures. So do you have any... And before that, there was a building that another the meeting was supposed to take place, and that in a different building before that. And that building was also sprayed with accusation against Ms. Albanese, but also against UNRWA, accusing of UNRWA being anti-Semitic, Albanese, etc. So do you have any comments on these attacks? Thank you.
Look, I don't have, I saw some of the reporting regarding the university. I didn't see all the other details. What is clear is that people should have a right to speak and right to organize meetings. Ms. Albanese, as you know, is independent from the Secretary General. We do believe that special rapporteurs as a whole have a critical role to play in the human rights architecture, but I think there needs to, you know, not just for these events, but for everywhere, you can find the balance of providing safety and security for events and also allowing people to speak.
Staying in Germany, Germany also, Berlin police broke up a few days ago a pro-Palestinian protest for chanting and singing in Arabic after banning Arabic language in protest or pro-Palestinian protest. I think they banned also other languages.
We believe in the right of assembly, in the right of peaceful assembly, in the right of assembly, and in the right of free speech. Yvonne.
Thanks, Steph. Just a reminder that a couple of months ago when I last asked you about the UN's internal investigation into the death of Private Sean Rooney, you said that more information on that investigation would be forthcoming. There hasn't been any information provided. What's the latest on that?
I will try to find out for you.
Thanks.
Okay. Happy Friday, if that is such a thing. And what? Bon vendredi, as we say. Shay Shay. Your first language is your mother tongue.
What about my mother's first language?
That's your mother's language.
What do you want?
Yeah.